All right, we're gonna let some people start entering the room and we'll start in just a little bit. Cool, amazing. How's it going, everyone? And welcome. So we're gonna give a little bit more time for people to kind of trickle in and enter our webinar here. So for those of you who don't know and while we wait, my name is Sean. I'm a content creator and a designer, and I'm actually really happy to partner up with Bravo and be able to do this kind of getting started webinar with you folks. What we're going to be doing today is some really easy stuff on creating an app in Figma, and we'll go ahead and we'll import it into Bravo. And after that, we'll actually use the Bravo Vision app to kind of see what our app is going to look like. So right now on my screen, if you folks look, I have a Figma file kind of with the layout of what I'm going to go over with today. So we're going to start off by creating an app and adding a Lottie animation. We'll go ahead, create a vertical list. I'll show you folks how to add a top bar. We'll add a detailed screen and I'll show you folks how to connect those screens together. We'll make sure we'll have all the correct Bravo tags on our app, and then we'll import it into Bravo and we'll view our app on Bravo Vision. So we'll get started in just a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. It's about 9:03 already, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So again, welcome for those of you who have just joined. Again, my name is Sean. I'm a content creator and designer, and I'm partnering up with Bravo to bring to you folks a getting started webinar on creating your very first app. Now we're gonna get started in Figma. So right now I have a Figma file open. And what I'm going to do first to get started is create our first app screen. Now, when creating an app screen, we can do this one of a few ways. Up on the top left, we can hit the frame tool here, or we can hit the F key. And one thing you'll notice on the right-hand side of Figma is we have a bunch of different options here. And if we select the phone option, we can actually select a pre-sized phone template for us to design our app on. So I'm just gonna choose an iPhone 11 Pro. And we'll see, I have a screen right over here. Now, what we're gonna be creating today is a simple recipe app. I actually created this app in the tutorials. So if you folks have been watching the tutorials on Bravo's Instagram, this is the same exact app that I'm going to replicate. So we're going to go ahead and let's just add some color and everything to my app screen. And again, what we're going to do first is add a Lottie animation to our app. Now in Figma, there is a plugin you can actually download if you want to add Lottie files. If you come back to your home screen in Figma, if you go to the community tab on the left-hand side, you can actually search different plugins. So if I search Lottie right now, and up here we have files, but if we go over to the plugins, we'll see that there's this Lottie files plugin. Now I already have it installed, but you can go ahead and install it if you don't have it installed on your Figma account already. And this allows us to search Lottie files and easily add them into our designs. So once we have that plugin installed, if we right click, you can go to plugins, or you can come up to the top of your screen and go to plugins here, either way. But if you go to your plugins, you can see your Lottie files plugin. And when you open it up, give it a second, you'll get this pop-up window here. And this is where we can search for different animations and Lottie files. So up here at the top of the plugin, there's a search. And what we'll do first is we'll go ahead and we'll search for an animation. Because it's a recipe app, I'm going to go ahead and search recipe. And you can see that there's a bunch of different animations and graphics you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and go with this second one up top here. So if we click on it, you can preview the animation or Lottie file. And you can say, yep, that's the one I want to go with. Now, the one thing you want to do before adding a Lottie file to your app is down in the bottom left over here, there's a background color. So right now it's set to white, meaning if I add this into my app, it's going to have a white background. So if we want it to be transparent, so we don't have a colored background, if you tap on it, there's a bar right here on the right-hand side. And this is going to be the opacity. So if we bring it all the way down, we'll get a transparent background. That way we can go ahead and add it to our app wherever we want, and we won't get any colored in the back. So we'll just hit OK. So once I change my background to 0 opacity and I like the Lottie file that I want, I'm going to actually hit the convert to GIF on the bottom. Now, depending on the animation you choose, this may take some time. Simple animations will go by quickly. More complex ones, as you can see, it's going to take a little bit more time to process through. So we'll wait till this animation adds in. All right, it's almost there. And once the file is done, you'll see a preview of it again. And then you'll have these two options to either go back or add it to your Figma file. So we'll go ahead and add it to Figma. All right, and now if you look at my layers tab on the left-hand side, you'll see that it added a component right over here. So I'm just gonna close out my Lottie file plugin. And I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit. So you'll see this right here is the Lottie animation. Now this is the first frame of the animation. So you only see this little black illustration here. But this here is gonna be the size of my animation. Now, if we go again to the layers tab, you'll see that it added this layer with the components, Lottie, and it actually has a URL right there. Now, the cool thing with Bravo and their tags and adding Lottie files is when you use the plugin, this is actually going to be formatted to a Bravo tag. So we don't have to change anything on it. We just add it to our Figma file and it's good to go. Now, one thing we got to do is drag it into our frame here. For our app, we'll make it just a little smaller. And then I'll place it right over there. Now, one thing we have to do to make sure it does show up in our app is wrap it in a container, but we're gonna do that a little bit later on in this. So that was the first part. So if I come down to our list of things we're gonna do right now. So we went ahead and did the first one. We added a Lottie file animation to our application. The next thing we're gonna do is create a vertical list. Now for the vertical list, it's gonna be a list of recipes for our recipe app. So I actually have a pre-designed list item right here, which is my recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead, drag this into my design, and I'll drag it right under my Lottie animation right here. Now, when creating a vertical list, so right now we have our frame of our iPhone 11 Pro. And what we can do is if we select that frame, so if I come up to the top right here and select the frame, we can actually adjust the size of the app screen. Now we don't want to change the width, but if what we can do is we can actually drag. I'm going to take this out for just a little bit. What we can do is we can actually drag down our app screen, and when we add this into Bravo, it knows how tall our app screen is. So what this is going to allow us to do is create a vertical scrolling through our app. So we can make it however tall we want to fit in what we need. So we'll just say right there. And when I drag in my recipe apps, and I'll go ahead and just duplicate this, and we'll go ahead and just kind of make a list of them going down. So when we do this, when we extend the height of our app screen, it's letting Bravo know that we have a lot more content. But when we do make this an actual app, Bravo is smart enough to know where to cut off the height of our application and allows us to go ahead and scroll through it. So adding vertical scrolling to an app is really easy. We just need to make and stretch the length of, or the height of our app screen itself. Now, there is horizontal scrolling. It is a little bit more that you have to add on for horizontal scrolling. If you go to Bravo's site and you look at their documentations, you can kind of look into how to implement horizontal scrolling into your apps. But for this getting started tutorial, we're just going to keep it to vertical scrolling right now. Okay, so that was our second thing on the list. And then the next thing, if we come back, is we're going to go ahead and add a top bar to our application. Now, top bar is going to be at the very top of our app, and it's going to have a menu button because we're going to add a slide menu, and it'll have a title for our application. So we'll go ahead and add a title first. I'll just name it Cookbook. We'll make that a little bigger. And then next, we're going to add a little menu icon right over here. Now, I'm going to be using another plugin in Figma, and it's called Feather Icons. So the same way that we installed the Lottie Files plugin, you can go back to the community tab over here, and then you can type in Feather icons, and you can install this plugin for your Figma account as well. And what Feather Icons allows us to do is access a bunch of icons pre-made, and we can search for different ones. So if I search for menu here, you can see that they have a menu option already. And if I click on it, it'll go ahead and add it into my file, and I can use it in my design. So we'll go ahead and just add our menu icon there. Close out of that plugin. We want to make sure that the menu is inside of our 11 Pro app screen here. Now, the cool thing and the good thing about the Feather icons is it groups together a bunch of vectors. So we actually can come over here to the right design panel, and we can actually change the color and everything of the actual icon. We can change the stroke width, so we can make it thinner, we can make it thicker, however we want. And then I'll change the color of the text to match. All right, so that's gonna be our top bar. Now, the one thing that we want with our top bar is we want it to remain at the top even when our user is scrolling through this vertically. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna get into wrapping our design with containers and the specific Bravo tags so that our app can be laid out when we preview it in Bravo Vision. So you can think of containers as blocks in Bravo. So when you design, you want these containers to stack one on top of each other. And how we're going to create a container is we're going to frame different sections of our design. So again, you can come up to the frame tool in the top left, or you can hit the F key. And I'm just going to tap in the middle of my screen to create a frame. Now, the one thing when creating containers is you want the container to be the full width of the app. So you want it all the way from the left to the right. We're going to drag this up to the top. And we're going to wrap around our top bar. And normally what I'll do is for a top bar, I'll make it 100 pixels in height. So you can see again, when we create a container, we want the frame to go all the way from one side, from the left to the right. The height container should always butt up against the top, either if it's the top of the app or the previous container before it. So if we go ahead and create a container for this Lottie file here, again, I'll make it from all the way from the left, all the way to the right. Let me get right there. So again, the top, you want it to go right against the bottom of the previous container. Now I'm going to zoom in a little more so it's a little easier to see. But when you wrap a frame, you'll have your frame will actually kind of lock in and you'll see red X's. So it kind of Figma knows where the previous frame is. So that's a good way to help you kind of know and line up your containers together. So again, we have our top frame here, our next one, and then our final one will be wrapping the rest of the recipe apps down here. Sorry, got a frame, not a rectangle. We'll go ahead and frame the rest of this selection. And you'll see again, those red X's pop up, allowing me to know exactly where the last frame was. Okay, so we created our 3 frames, right? We have the bottom one that contains a list of our recipes. We have this one here that has our Lottie animation. And then we have this top one here that is going to contain our top bar. And again, if you look, they're all stacked one on top of each other. Now, if we look here on our layers, we have frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3. What we'll go ahead and do is we'll rename these layers and frames to what they're actually going to be. So one, we can say top bar. And what we're going to add after we name the layers is a Bravo tag. So for those of you who don't know, Bravo tags are a naming convention that Bravo has designed. So when we add these certain tags, Bravo knows what to do with those layers and what to do, kind of how to form them into your application. So a container, what we're going to do is we're going to have an opening and closing bracket. And within that, we're just going to write the container. Okay, so you can see right here, I have my top bar, and then the bracket, container, and then close bracket. So we'll do that for the second frame as well. We'll rename it. We'll name this one Lottie file. And then we'll add the container tag onto that one. And then the bottom section, we'll just call this recipes, and we'll add the container tag there as well. Now, what we're going to have to do is make sure that all these elements are in the correct containers, because right now they're just outside. We want to make sure that they're inside of the right layer. So what we can do is the Lottie. We'll go into our Lottie container. We have the menu and our title right here that are going to go into our top bar. And then we have our recipes that are going to go into our recipe container. So if we were to put this into Bravo Vision and Bravo right now, this is exactly how you would see our application, right? You would see our menu up, or top bar up here. You would see our animation playing, and then you would see a list of our recipes. Now, for the top bar, we're going to go back because what we want is we want this top bar to stay at the top when we scroll through our app. Right now, if it's just a regular container, if we were to scroll, this would scroll up with the rest of our application. So one thing I'm going to show you folks really quick is if I go into our Safari screen here, and if you have Bravo open on our dashboard, we can actually go to the Bravo tags list here. And this is going to bring us to the Bravo tags master list. Now, this is a great documentation where you can look at all the different tags and different things you can do with Bravo. So if we come down here, there's a containers and Topbar section. And if we look right over here, we have the Topbar. So container is what we were using to wrap the rest of our app. But if we come down here to Topbar, you can see that this is the tag we need to use. And it gives an explanation of what the Topbar is. So it fixes the position to the top of the screen and does not scroll with the rest of the screen, which is what we want. So we can see that we have the container, and then we have to add this top dash bar section to our name. So we come back here to our top bar. We're just going to add top dash bar. And that's going to allow us to keep this section and remain it up top. All right, so we went ahead, we created our animation, we made our list of recipes, we added our top bar. What we're gonna do next is we'll actually implement a menu. I don't think I have it on my list here, but we're gonna do a quick sliding menu from the side. And we can do that by creating another screen for our menu. All right, I'm going to make this the same color here. Now, when we do a slide menu, the one thing we're going to want to do is actually rename the main frame screen that we have here. And we want to make sure that we're going to use a Bravo tag. Now, I'm just going to name this slide menu. And in the tag, it's going to be menu slide. And that's going to let Bravo know that when we open up our slide menu, this is the design that we're going to use. So I'm going to really quick just design a slide menu for us here. I'm going to create what our slide menu is going to look like. Normally for a slide menu, the width, I make it 250 pixels. And one thing we're going to have to do is wrap this part here in a frame or container. All right. We're going to make sure that our rectangle is inside of that one. And we're going to name this menu and make sure we have a container tag around it. Now in here, we're just going to have our home, and we'll have our recipe option here. Of course, you can add in whatever you want into your side menu, but just for this simple tutorial, we're just going to add these two right now. So again, you want to make sure those two are within your menu container, and that menu container is within your main app screen with the menu slide option. Okay, so now we have an app. We have a menu. When we hit the menu button here, we have our top bar that will stay up top. The next thing we're going to add is a detail screen. So we have a list of recipes here, but when a user clicks on one of these recipes, we want them to be navigated to the detail screen to show them the instructions for that recipe. So we'll go ahead and we'll create, again, another screen for our recipe. And I'm just going to copy one of these elements and make it a little bigger in here. Right, so we open it up, and this is our, we'll just say that's our recipe, right? And we'll have a list of the instructions and everything in here. Now, one thing in design, when we navigate someone from one screen to another, we want a way for the user to go back a screen. So I'm going to add a little back arrow right here, and I'm going to use the feather icons plugin one more time. And right over here, there's a back arrow icon. So if I click on that, I'm going to zoom in just a bit. And I'm going to take this guy and drag him back right there. Now I want him to be a little thicker and change the color of it to purple. And then we'll add a title, and we'll say these are the instructions to your recipe. All right. So again, what we're going to have to do in here is we always want to make sure that our elements are in a container. Now, because this page is just going to be one page shown like this, and it's not going to have different sections like our home page, we can actually just wrap this whole page in one big container. So that, and I'm just going to name this instructions, and I'm going to wrap it in, name it with the container tag. I'm also going to make sure that everything is in that container tag right there. So we have our 2 pages right now, right? We have our home page. When a user taps on one of these recipes, it'll bring us to this instructions where they have a list of the instructions for the recipe. We have our slide menu. When someone taps on the menu here, it'll open up our menu. Home will take us to this home screen, and recipe right now, just so I can show you folks, we'll make this recipe go into the detailed recipe screen. Now, one thing we're going to have to do is prototype and connect all of these pages together, because right now we just have these different designs. They're not linked to one another at all. And in order to do this, we're going to use a feature in Figma. And if we come over to the right section here, right now we're in our design tab. If we go one more over, we have our prototype. And what prototype is going to allow us to do is link different pages together. So if I click on an element like our menu button, it's going to link to our slide menu here. If we tap on this recipe, we want it to link to our detailed page here. So these, in order to create prototypes, we'll start off with linking this recipe to our detailed recipe screen here. Now, if I click on this, you'll see that right now I actually have all the recipes selected, because right now I actually have my main container selected. I don't want the whole container selected, because basically that's going to say if I click anywhere in this section, it's going to bring me over to the detailed screen. I only want it to bring me over when I click on this top one. So if I double click and go down one more layer, now you'll see it only wraps this one recipe item here. And right on the right-hand side, if I zoom in a little bit more, you'll see that there is a circle with a plus button. And when you're in prototype, if you click and drag, you'll see you get an arrow. And what you're doing is telling Figma, when this is tapped, where do you want it to go? So we'll drag it right here to our detail screen. And you'll see that Figma brings up this option. So on click, so when we tap on this recipe here, it's going to navigate to this screen right here. Now, what we can do is the same thing when we're in this screen. We want this back button to go back to this home page. So if we double click onto our back arrow, you'll see that plus button again. You can click, drag it, and we're going to drag it back to our home screen here. Now, a few more things we need to connect are when someone taps on this menu button, we want it to navigate to our slide menu here. So if I double click on that menu button, drag that plus button to our menu option. So now that is connected there. And the last thing we're going to want to do is when our menus open, what do these menu items link to? So if I double tap on the home is just going to link us back to our home page. And for this example, this recipe one is going to take us to our detail page of our recipe. So if I click off, you'll see all these different lines, and that's telling us all the different connections that we made through the prototyping in Figma. So we have our menu items going to their correct pages. Again, the menu icon here opens up the menu, and then the recipe to the recipe and the back arrow back to the home page. Now, one thing you're going to notice when you open up the prototype section, and once you start connecting things, is there's this blue play button that's going to appear. Now, this blue play button normally in Figma tells Figma what's the first screen that opens when you want to prototype this app. Now, sometimes you might have this play button on a different screen, like your slide menu. Now, if you have a menu tag in your Bravo app, you don't want this play button to be on your menu screen. You want this play button to be on the screen that you want to open first, so your home screen of your application. So in this one here, in this example, it's going to be our main screen here with our list of the recipes. So you always want to double check and make sure that that blue play button is in the correct area. All right, so that pretty much is going to sum up our design here for our recipe app. We have our home screen, we have a top bar that's going to stay up top with a menu button that opens up our slide menu right over here. Down here, we have a Lottie animation that's going to play. We have a scrolling list of all the recipes that we're going to have in our application. And we have a detailed screen that when our recipe is tapped on, it's going to bring us to this screen here with the list of instructions for that recipe. And then a back button to go back if we want to go and navigate back to our home screen. Now, just to clean this up a bit, I'm going to rename this screen here our home screen. And I'm going to name this page right here our detail screen. Okay. So that there is going to be pretty much a very simple app designed in Figma that's going to work with Bravo. Now, we're going to do the last step, and that's actually putting this into Bravo and viewing it on our actual mobile device. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up Safari here, and we're going to get started with Bravo. So if you don't have a Bravo account right now, this screen is, once you have an account, this is kind of your main dashboard. On the left-hand side here, you'll see we'll have projects, you have data libraries and sample apps. Those things, you can kind of read Bravo's documentations more about it. You have the Bravo tags list, which is a very helpful resource that allows you to see all the different tools and tags Bravo has to offer. But we're going to keep it up here in the projects section. Now, these are previous projects that I have done. These are actually the projects I created for the tutorials that I have on Bravo. Now, up here in the top right, you'll see a import Figma file. So if we click on that, if you haven't already connected your Figma account, it may ask you to connect it here. But once you have it connected, it's going to ask for the URL of our Figma file that we just created. So in order to get that URL, we're going to go back to our design here. In the top right of that Figma file, there is a share button. So we click on that. We can actually just come down to the bottom here and hit copy link. And that will copy the link to our clipboard. So if we come back to Bravo and in that section where it asks for the URL, we can just paste that in, and then we can hit import. Now it'll take a little bit for Bravo to import that Figma file. And then once it is imported, you'll see that we'll have our different screens that we created in Figma. So we have our home screen, our slide menu, and our detail page right over here. And right now it's named Bravo app, and that's just the name that I had for this application here. Now, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna jump into the actual mobile app that Bravo has that allows us to view our designs. So it's called Bravo Vision. You can download it from your app store. And I'm gonna bring up my phone screen right over here. So this is the Bravo Vision app. You can see that my screen is just going to be showing to you folks. It's going to have a list of all the different app projects that you have. Now, if we look at the top left, we'll see Bravo app, and that's the app that we just designed and created. So if we tap on it, we'll let it load, and we'll be able to actually view and see our application, right? So you can see right at the top, we have our top bar with our title. We have that Lottie animation right there. So now that we actually can preview the app, you'll see that the animation is going to play, and it's a GIF, so it's just going to keep repeating itself. As we scroll, you'll see the top bar that we created stays in one spot, so it's not going to move. And then we have our vertical list of all the different recipes that we created. If we hit our slide menu, you can see that our menu is going to slide out, and we have our home and recipe options, which is the ones that we created. We can tap to close it. And if you remember when we prototyped that first recipe, when we tap on it, you can see that it brings us to a detailed instructions screen, which would have the list of the instructions for the recipe. We can hit the back button to go back to the main screen. If we open up the slide menu one more time, if we tap on recipe, it should navigate us to our detailed recipe screen. And from here, we can still go back and go to our home screen. So right there, that is pretty much a very simple app, all created in Bravo. And time right now, I mean, we did all of this in about 40 minutes. So you can see how easy and how useful Bravo can be when creating applications. Now, of course, we didn't add too much detail into here, but this is just showing you the possibilities that Bravo has to offer. If you're just getting started, I encourage you folks to join Bravo's 5-day challenge. You can check it out on Instagram. It's a great challenge that you can do to kind of get started. And I'm actually gonna have tutorial videos on it, creating the same app that we just created here. Now, again, for future resources, always, I would say, check out that Bravo tags list. It's a great way to kind of read on the different features that you can create in Bravo. They have a bunch of different stuff. We just went over the basics, but as you can see here, there's a lot more things that you can add on to make a little bit more complex applications. So let's see, right now, I'm gonna see if there's any questions that we have. Looks like all of them are being answered right now. So again, check out Bravo for the 5-day challenge. If you folks do have questions, go ahead, add them into the question panel now so we can get them answered before we're done here. And yeah, check out Bravo's Instagram page, do their 5-day challenge. If you complete the challenge and everything, there's actually a little prize for you at the end. So go ahead and check it out. You can also check out their YouTube channel or my YouTube channel. We're sharing tutorials on how to create different applications all the time. Yeah, so I see some answers coming in. There are other features in Bravo that are going to be allow you to create much more complex things. Right now, we're just creating this webinar to kind of go through the basics and the fundamentals to get people started. But definitely check out Bravo's websites and documentations if you want to take it a little further. Cool. So we'll leave the Q&A open up. Oh, thank you so much for those of you who send those nice messages. But yes, if you folks have any other questions, we're going to leave that open just for a little bit more. If nothing pops up in a little bit, well, that'll be it. And I hope you folks enjoyed this. For those, the question on developing apps for different size devices, if you check out the Bravo tags, there is actually a responsive tag that you can use for different app sizes. Awesome. You're welcome, folks. Those of you who said thanks. Yes, I believe we are recording this for people to view in the future. So for those of you who want to go ahead and view it again, Bravo will be sharing it. Yeah, again, so for those of you who had questions on data management, there are ways, but if you check out Bravo's documentation, you can read about it there. We really want to keep this to kind of getting started and the basics of Bravo. Awesome. Yes, you're welcome to everyone who's saying thank you. Cool. Sorry, I'm scrolling through a few more questions here to see if I can answer any. I believe Bravo will be sharing a recorded version of this, so just keep posted for that. For advanced app designs, you can follow me on Instagram or YouTube. You can also follow Bravo as well. We're always sharing content on different things you can do. But again, this was just a basic overview of the simple and basic things you can do in Bravo. To the question of no code, yes. So I would, Bravo is a no code for native app development. The great thing is if you're a designer or you design mobile applications, it's a great way to kind of be able to take projects from start to finish as a designer. You don't need to go out and hire a developer to develop everything for you. So Bravo is definitely a great solution for designers who are looking at no-code solutions. All right, if any of you folks have questions, or leave the chat and the Q&A open for just a bit longer. Right now, I believe Bravo is set to mobile apps for iOS and Android devices. Yeah, and you're welcome to everyone who's saying thanks again. Ooh, sorry if I'm missing your questions. There's a lot popping up here. I think your answer may have been answered in the chat section. So double check on that. All right. Well, if those are all, I have one more. Oh, looks like we're answering that question there. All right. Compatible with dynamic content. By dynamic, do you mean like responsive? Cool. Looks like we'll get someone to answer that question there. But if any of you, but thank you to everyone who came and attended this live webinar. Hopefully you learned a lot, and hopefully you can get started creating your own apps with Bravo. We'll answer the last few questions, but with that being said, again, thank you, and I hope to see you folks soon.